It's crucial for us, especially here in the West, to re-establish our ancestral ties that were severed by centuries of religious and cultural erasure. We were taught that Jesus is the light of the world and shown a European image of Christ, which disconnected us from the rich pantheon of African and Egyptian deities carved into temple walls millennia before the BCE and Mosaic eras. This break cut us off from countless generations of wisdom, our Salah, ancestors, Nasab, relatives, Adamu, forebears, and Kadamu, elders, up through the timeless Panetero, ancient ones. Reclaiming these links honors our past, empowers our present, and secures our future children's identity. Eczema is fundamentally a genetic condition, encoded in our DNA, and not caused by mixing bodily fluids. Our teachings supplement this biological understanding with a symbolic layer. As descendants of partial reptilian origins, we bear vestiges of scale-like ash on our skin, reflecting an ancestral attribute. In our studies, we've explored how early experiments by the Sumerian deity scientist Ninkursag, engrafting different life forms introduced genetic anomalies, some of which manifest today as skin disorders like eczema. Through concepts like genetic KISS and analyses of mitochondrial DNA, for example, the 37 identifiable gene markers, we trace how ancient gene mixing and lineage inclinations continue to influence modern health. We use shadow hour instead of night to counter the misconception that the sun disappears. In truth, Earth's rotation takes us into the sun's shadow. The sun remains constant. By abandoning terms that reinforce ignorance, night implying the sun's absence, we reclaim accurate, empowering language. Our fasting isn't religious ritual, it's a spiritual discipline and a health practice. On the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of each month, and every Thursday, we observe a liquid fast. This eases the digestive burden, allowing the body to heal and regenerate. We break the fast 19 minutes before the shadow hour with something light, like a date and miso soup. Logically, eating heavy meals too close to sleep disrupts the body's rest and restorative processes. Our teachers speak of ancestral abilities to inhabit animal forms, not through eternal souls, but via temporary spirits. Animals, lacking a human-like soul, yield their bodies more readily. Masks depicting rams, cats, or other creatures weren't mere costume, they were conduits for specific attributes and teachings. Each mask, and its headdress, corresponded to a school of wisdom and conveyed lessons aligned with that animal's nature. The original holy tablets were composed in religious language to guide those transitioning out of organized faiths. Our master teacher has instructed us to set them aside temporarily, to wash away inherited lies, and focus on the unvarnished actual facts. After internalizing these truths, we may revisit the tablets with deeper insight, understanding their symbolic framework more fully. The Black Margaraj Pyramid in Georgia was designed as an alignment and purification device. With 12 internal chambers mirroring celestial coordinates, it served to turn us inside out, exposing false beliefs so we could brainwash, i.e., cleanse, ourselves of lies. Tibetan monks journeyed from their monasteries to assist in its construction, recognizing its profound spiritual potency. Its placement, like Giza's Great Pyramids aligned to Orion's belt, restores Earth's original energetic grid disrupted by axial shifts. Each of us was given a unique vibrational signature, or tone, at creation. Regaining that original frequency requires personal guidance from our own spiritual mentor. Only through one-on-one transmission can we reconnect to our true name and resonate with our destiny. Baba Yanun defines a master teacher as someone who can, year by year, impart the equivalent of 10 years' worth of knowledge without overwhelming students' minds. Daily, he writes concise books and scrolls, teaches dynamic classes, and guides each student individually, choosing the precise words and vocal tones that resonate with their unique time reference, thereby rechambering and activating latent capacities in their DNA. At the Megharaj court, practitioners entered a labyrinth centered on a black mirror, from which emanated a sustained Om chant vibrating at 144,000 MHz. This frequency aligns with the historic motif of the 144,000, for example, in early Christian texts, and mirrors the voice frequency of our teacher, who also embeds space tone triggers within his English language text to activate readers' brains at this same resonance. According to the opening scroll of the Black Book, the original directive was, "Let us descend and unify their tongues into the one language, restoring the true language of our ancestors." That language, Sabian, is considered the primordial tongue capable of aligning thought and reality. Humans typically access only about 7% of their cerebral capacity. To overcome this, our teacher uses tonal activations at the Megharaj court, realigning all chromosomes via precise sonic patterns. He likens unused brain regions to a vestigial finger, atrophied for lack of use, and employs vocal tonal exercises to wake those dormant areas. To stimulate neglected brain pathways, he recommends backward walking on a track to engage reverse neural circuits. Using your non-dominant hand for routine tasks, for example, eating, writing, to develop cross-hemispheric connectivity. In the text known as the Prism, verse 47 states, voices, songs, and chants of other races can alter your DNA. Only those vibrating at the highest frequencies, like the Negro Afro lineage, can uplift, all others risk causing harm. Hence the practice of speaking our own language in one's own tonal range, to block demonic interferences and maintain DNA integrity. The infamous letter from Willie Lynch is genuine. Its lingering psychological effects persist, trapping minds in dated patterns of oppression. Dr. Malachi Z. York describes himself as the reformer who must reshape us according to our primordial design. He begins with small scrolls, £5 or $1 books, gradually increasing their complexity, £15 or $1 books, then far heavier volumes. Each year, students absorb 10 years' worth of knowledge, building mental muscle without overload. Ongoing reading, questioning, and teaching others ensures that students fully assimilate and perpetuate the wisdom. True mastery culminates in love and care. Using the example of a parent at a child's hospital bedside, our teacher illustrates, we instinctively pour our hearts into saving one life, yet remain unmoved by mass tragedy. He reveals, we've come back to share this knowledge because you are our children, and we love you. That profound love, he argues, justifies every method and teaching he imparts. Saying African American can imply a cultural identity more than literal African origin. By blood, African Americans descend from Africans, even if born in the U.S. Anunnaki is a title, meaning those who came from the heavens, not a species. Draconian refers to one branch of reptilian species. There are many reptilian lineages with different names and ranks. Sumerian texts, Enuma Elish, Gilgamesh, name Enlil or Marduk as the supreme. Ancient Egypt's Amun-Ra, and earlier Ptah, Osiris, etc., represent local Anunnaki authority. In India, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva fill that role for their region. The Torah and Quran drew on Sumerian and Babylonian stories, for example, creation epic, flood. Many spells and narratives originated in ancient Mesopotamian texts. The Babylonian fish god Dagon and African water spirits inspired mermaid lore. Original aquatic beings were air-breathing mammals genetically engineered to live underwater. The Anunnaki combined genes, for example, from dolphins, with proto-human stock to create a workforce adapted to Earth. Over millions of years, this Stone Age soup evolved into modern humans. Different ancestral species were bioengineered to survive deserts, tropics, cold climates, etc. True terraforming, altering local ecosystems, plants, insects, animals, to support imported species. Africans had sustainable farming practices, crop rotation, long before Europeans arrived. European monoculture depleted American soils in the 1920s to 30s, leading to Dust Bowl conditions. As various extraterrestrial species interbred with human stock, all terrestrial races emerged from this initial hybrid pool. Egyptian mummification and royal lineages aim to keep untainted Anunnaki genetics intact for future resurrection. There is a distinction between the Egyptian concepts of Ba and Ka. Ba, individual soul or personality energy, Ka, vital force or spiritual double, tied to cosmic/solar energy and vibration. The sun was respected not as a deity to worship but as the source of life-giving energy, solar way. Humans, solar children, metabolize sunlight into carbon energy, breathing its vibration. Early priests encoded sacred texts to prevent outsiders, especially invaders, from understanding or misusing the knowledge. According to the master teacher, the pyramids were never mere tombs but sophisticated power plants designed to tap into, and broadcast through, Earth's natural energy grid. They served as terraforming stations. When celestial beings descended to Earth, they brought advanced technology to adapt this planet to their needs. By aligning pyramid structures atop ley lines, the planet's magnetic grid, these ancient engineers could both draw power from the Earth and project energy outward. When the grid shifted due to a cosmic event, the original purpose of those sites was lost, and the use of the pyramids was eventually abandoned. As taught, there is essentially one draconian lineage dating back approximately 450,000 to 500,000 years. While there were 9 offshoot colonies, enclaves, of this species, not all were native to their homeworld, and only one original draconian race remains the progenitor. Some of these beings were fully physical, others existed in a non-physical, etheric, form. In Jesus Found in Egypt, the master teacher explains that the Hyksos, also called the Shasu or Shepherd Kings, were foreign rulers who conquered parts of Egypt during the 15th and 16th dynasties. They were eventually driven out by native Egyptian forces, an event foreshadowed in Isaiah 19:2-4, where a cruel lord and fierce king rule over Egypt. After defeat, the Hyksos retreated across the desert into Canaan, later identifying themselves as Israelites. There is, however, no direct Egyptian inscription bearing the name Israel in Goshen. The linkage comes from overlapping oral traditions and later biblical references. Beginning around 1971's emerging blockbuster era, Hollywood films started featuring high-concept mythologies strikingly similar to those in the master teacher's writings, yet they rarely acknowledge him as a source. Movies such as Star Wars, The Matrix, Terminator, Dune, and others explore themes of cosmic war, ancient seed races, and metaphysical power, ideas he published decades earlier. Critics often accuse him of plagiarizing others, but it's equally clear that screenwriters have mined his work without credit. The master teacher described these entities as flesh-eating, bloodthirsty beings who once ruled over human cults. According to his teachings, they departed long ago but left adherents behind who continue rituals to beckon them back. He noted that in 2003, a summit of 144,000 chosen occurred near Nome, Alaska, forming a pact to provide 30,000 bodies per day in preparation for their overlord's return. The modern outbreak of conflict and violent cult activity, he asserted, stems from this effort to gather the necessary meat supply for those entities. Cain brought an offering of crops, while Abel offered the first animal he had killed. God favored Abel's sacrifice of blood over Cain's produce, indicating a preference for an offering that involved the life of his creation. The narrative emphasizes that God smelled the pleasing aroma of Abel's sacrifice, described as sweet and savory, underscoring that he values the shedding of blood in these early rituals. In Genesis 1:1, the Hebrew word for God is Elohim, a plural term, suggesting a council or company of divine beings. By Genesis 2:4, the text switches to Yahweh Elohim, focusing on a singular Lord. This shift hints at multiple divine actors in creation, rather than a lone, all-merciful deity. True justice demands equal punishment for equal wrongdoing, while mercy involves withholding deserved punishment. A deity cannot be fully just and fully merciful simultaneously, each quality pulls in opposite directions. The idea of unending punishment clashes with traditions of our ancestors, who would never have conceived of an infinitely cruel sentence for a finite life. Eternal torment for a brief human lifespan seems harsh and uncharacteristic of a truly loving first cause. The pineal gland is indeed a gland. Like other endocrine glands, it secretes hormones, notably melatonin, that bind to receptors elsewhere in the body. Planets form from material ejected by the sun. As they cool, gases and elements combine under solar radiation. Water and carbon dioxide in the young Earth's atmosphere reacted, CO2's carbon bonding with H2O, to create simple carbohydrates and release oxygen, laying the foundation for life through processes akin to early photosynthesis. Certain ancestral beings lived underwater with gills and later evolved lungs before emerging onto land. These aquatic species represent genetic shifts in our creation narrative, moving life from water to land over vast time scales. Existence precedes creation, something must exist to produce anything new. The earliest beginnings stretch beyond human comprehension, perhaps trillions of years, so vast that if our lifespan were a blink, that original moment is effectively ungraspable. The bright blue appearance of Earth from orbit is sunlight reflected and scattered by the atmosphere. Light is the visible portion of a broader spectrum of solar energy. Photons interacting with air molecules create the blue glow we see. The moon emits no light of its own. Its brightness is purely reflected sunlight. Its phases result from the changing angles between Sun, Earth, and Moon. The four worlds each span 6,000 years, referring to successive ages or cycles in human history rather than cataclysmic events. Each cycle marks a new genetic phase, shifts from water-based to land-based life forms, happening over millions of years. In the Eden story, the figure called the serpent, Hebrew Nakash, conveys truthful knowledge to the woman, contrary to the prohibition imposed by Bes, the ruling being. Whether one views the serpent as right or wrong depends on which side of that divine conflict one aligns with. Bes and his brother Ptah appear consistently in the tradition. Ptah's sixth son, Sutan Satan, the serpent, is the same figure who imparts the forbidden knowledge. Thus, the conflict involves uncle, Bes, and nephew, Satan. Although Christian doctrine speaks of the Trinity, the term itself does not appear in Scripture. Its roots, however, can be traced to Egyptian theology, where triadic deities, groups of three gods, were worshipped, foreshadowing later Christian formulations. The doctrine of the Trinity was formalized after the books of the New Testament were compiled. In 325 AD, Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea to unify various religious factions, Jewish Christians, often called Nazarites, Gentile, Hellenistic, Christians, and pagan Romans, under a single creed. To achieve doctrinal unity, the Council articulated the concept of one God in three persons, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and later scribes even inserted 1 John 5:7, the Father, the Word and the Holy Spirit, and these three are one, into some Latin manuscripts to bolster this view. That verse, however, does not appear in the earliest Greek copies of the New Testament. The Apostle Paul's letters reflect the cultural attitudes of his time. In 1 Corinthians 14:33-35, he instructs that women should remain silent in church services and ask questions at home through their husbands. In 1 Timothy 2:7-15, he similarly forbids women to teach or hold authority over men, arguing that Eve's deception led to humanity's fall. These passages have been used historically to restrict women's roles in Christian worship and leadership. According to Genesis 2-3, God gave the command not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil directly to Adam before Eve existed. Technically, Adam was the first to hear and break that command. Yet Paul, 1 Timothy 2:14, blames Eve's deception for the fall, reflecting a later interpretive tradition rather than the original narrative sequence. In our tradition, the story of our master teacher's abduction parallels earlier accounts, such as Aeon's thwarted attempt to open sacred gateways, showing that intervening forces have long sought to block access to our deeper spiritual knowledge. These beings understood our ancient technologies and spiritual sciences and acted to prevent us from achieving full transformation. True spiritual change requires personal effort. There is no magic pill. The helping hand you seek is at the end of your own arm. If most of your mental, physical, and spiritual intake comes from oppressive, external sources rather than from Wu-Sabat, our life-affirming spiritual practice, your body and mind will conform to those external inputs. Like a body that adapts to chemicals, your being responds to whatever energy you feed it. Consistent practice of Wu-Sabat is necessary to transform. Merely reading religious texts without applying their principles leaves you unchanged. The three keys of Wu-Sabat function as beacons that illuminate truth and dispel falsehood. Their precise inner sciences are still being revealed by our master teacher. In the 1960s, he introduced these degrees when we resisted pure African spiritual science by clinging to religion. He first taught us the questions embedded in our religious heritage, then gradually unveiled the deeper answers as we matured. Jesus' encounter with the Canaanite woman highlights his initial focus on Israel, the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and the prevailing Jewish view of Gentiles as ceremonially unclean dogs. Despite calling her a dog, her persistent faith, even dogs eat the crumbs from their master's table, led Jesus to commend her faith and heal her daughter. This story underscores that her own faith, rather than entitlement, secured the miracle. The figure of 144,000 in Revelation refers symbolically to spiritual food rather than a literal number of people. The term rapture, though not found in scripture, echoes raptor, birds of prey, and alludes to predatory beings harvesting this food. That event, in our lineage, is understood to have already occurred, and it is not a future promise for our people but a warning about those who would exploit spiritual seekers. Spiritual refers to the underlying energy or essence that connects all living things, nature, trees, the environment. Beyond their physical form, natural objects like trees symbolize deeper, life-giving forces. Physically, everything manifests as atoms, starting with the hydrogen atom, the smallest element. These atoms are composed of even smaller, subatomic particles. What lies beneath the atomic level, energy without measurable mass, can be considered spiritual. Moving from nothing, no measurable mass, into something, atoms with mass, shows how the physical world emerges from the spiritual. Before we can weigh or measure it, it exists as pure energy or potential. Every thought, word or sound is a vibration with a specific frequency. Spoken tones and musical notes follow mathematical patterns, frequencies, which our ancestors used deliberately to influence both spiritual and physical realities. Activating dormant aspects of our being, like chakras, involves using precise tones or vibrations. Their spiritual practices were scientific and purposeful. Prayer tones, musical notes, and spoken words all carried specific vibrational and mathematical significance to open energy centers and effect change. When people adopt rituals without grasping their true meanings, or use spiritual practices for power, those practices become distorted, turning tools of enlightenment into instruments of control. Spirituality predates organized religion. Many modern religions were structured to control people, sometimes by beings, for example, Anunnaki, who used faith for subjugation. True spiritual knowledge links back to our ancestral teachings, which aim to empower rather than control. Original African dialects carried distinct harmonic vibrations. Mixing genetic and cultural influences, for example, through migration and contact with other peoples, alters vocal frequencies, resulting in new accents. Vocal tone itself is a form of vibrational code that can protect or transform the speaker's energy. Sound waves become electrical impulses in the brain. Visualizing or speaking an idea involves translating vibration into thought and then into physical form, writing, speech. Thus, consciousness, vibration, and matter are intricately intertwined. Egyptian ontology and mythology explores symbolic meanings of black versus white. Further, religion addresses foundational spiritual questions. The Prison, on sonic energy and vocalization. These texts, written by our master teacher, serve as direct letters guiding us from mere knowledge to true understanding and application. In many West African societies, drums, often called talking drums, served as long-distance communication devices. Skilled drummers could mimic the tonal patterns of local languages, sending messages across miles without the need for messengers on horseback. By varying pitch and rhythm, they conveyed alerts such as prepare for attack or logistical requests. Colonial authorities, recognizing how enslaved people used these drums to organize and resist, banned them. As a result, communities in Trinidad and Barbados developed the steel pan, a percussion instrument whose timbres cannot replicate human speech patterns and thus could not be used to pass coded messages. Many people report seeing apparitions, often misty, translucent figures resembling loved ones who have passed away. From a metaphysical perspective, our universe comprises multiple planes or vibrational frequencies. The physical world vibrates slowly enough to register on our senses, but higher planes vibrate too quickly for sight, hearing, or touch. Those who cultivate subtle senses, intuition, clairvoyance, telepathy, may perceive entities on these higher planes. Spirits cannot affect the physical realm directly unless one's own vibration is lowered, through diet, media, or behavior, allowing them to interact. According to certain esoteric traditions, spoken language carries a vibrational frequency. When a community shares one tongue, they form a unified broadcast that can either liberate or control. Ancient African teachers taught a primordial language that resonated at a natural frequency, immune to external manipulation. In contrast, mixing tongues, as described in the biblical story of Babel, introduces frequencies planted by alien or elite forces to maintain mental subjugation. Reclaiming one's ancestral language and tone is said to disrupt these broadcasts and restore collective mental freedom. Advanced interdimensional beings are believed to be shapeshifters. They may appear as trusted figures, grandparents, spouses, religious icons, to gain acceptance. Their true vibrational signature, however, differs from ours. By learning the power language or correct tonal frequencies, practitioners aim to block deceptive transmissions and distinguish genuine ancestral spirits from malevolent entities. Some traditions trace a deliberate confounding of tongues to ancient extraterrestrial rulers, the Anunnaki or Elohim, who introduced Semitic, Arabic, Greek, and Persian elements into African speech to weaken indigenous vibrations. Later, religious doctrines, whether Islam, Hinduism, or Christianity, were blended with local beliefs to fracture unity. Colonial powers exploited tribal divisions, pitting one African group against another and then enslaving the survivors. What Western culture labels black magic was, in fact, an advanced spiritual science practiced by Nubians, Egyptians, and other African civilizations. By harnessing sound and vibration, what modern science might call resonance, these cultures could manifest physical effects from thought alone. Colonial narratives demonize these practices, branding them as evil while celebrating similar concepts as white magic in European contexts. Reclaiming the term black magic involves restoring its original meaning, the art of working with unseen forces in harmony with nature. Every being has a natural vibration suited to its environment. True wisdom lies in understanding and honoring one's unique tone. Just as different radio stations broadcast on distinct frequencies, each culture and individual resonates with specific energies. Respecting these differences fosters mutual understanding and prevents the divide and conquer strategies that have long been used to oppress. Millions of years ago, and again thousands of years ago, advanced beings came to our planet to terraform it and teach their knowledge. These teachings formed the root of what we now call spiritual science. The Dogon were once in ancient Egypt before being exiled. They carried with them thousands of manuscripts of mystical knowledge. Their records were kept in caves and even in apartments carved directly into rock faces, protecting them for centuries. The original glyphic script combined symbols with precise tonal sounds, more like silent movies than spoken words. European translators, unfamiliar with these tones, imposed alphabetic conventions that lost much of the original meaning. When the exiled masters could no longer teach openly, they went underground. Their roles transformed into rabbis, imams, and Brahmins, religious leaders who still carried fragments of the ancient doctrine, though often watered down to fit new cultural contexts. In the late 1700s and early 1800s, Europeans discovered and translated Egyptian hieroglyphics, but without the original tonal keys, much was misunderstood. Subsequent scholars, including early black Egyptologists, relied on these European versions, perpetuating errors and sidelining the authentic African voices. Contemporary teachers are now tuning into the original frequencies, recognizing patterns like the 7-inch tonal migrations in temple walls, and drawing parallels to phenomena like black holes and iris patterns, all encoded in ancient symbolism. Centuries of slavery and colonialism forced African descendants to adopt Christian, Islamic, or Jewish ideologies, often at the expense of their own culture. Many lost touch with their ancestral languages and were taught only translations that fitted foreign doctrines. Language first. To truly grasp biblical or mystical texts, you must learn the original tongues, Hebrew, Arabic, Egyptian, before relying on any English translation. Our beliefs shape our dreams and subconscious reality. Just as imagining a film can feel real, our conviction in these ancient truths activates our spiritual power. Religion has spread worldwide, much like McDonald's, customized for each culture. What one group calls democracy may feel like dictatorship to another. True respect comes from acknowledging each tradition on its own terms. From early female MCs like Salt and Peppa to today's video vixens, media shapes our ideals. Societies cycle through influence. What seems modern often revives ancient archetypes. Legends of the Anunnaki and bloodlines descending from these beings, and power struggles in hidden councils remind us that Earth's history is woven into cosmic narratives far older than any state or empire.